The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Hello, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chet.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Wednesday in the Riv, hump day, and we got a ton of stuff to talk about. We just never run out of things.
Never run out of things, that's for sure.
Never run out of things. So.
Well, one of the things I want to talk about right off the bat is wind energy.
Yeah, well, yeah. You mean the thing that destroyed the country of Sri Lanka? Okay.
Yes, yeah, and caused all that problem last winter in Texas
and over in Europe too. They're having problems.
Yep, in Europe, and now we have the Massachusetts Energy Commissioner saying this green energy isn't going to support us. And with the rising cost of gas and the shortages and the rising cost of electricity and the lack of natural gas to produce electricity, we may run into shortages this winter in gas and electric.
Don't worry about it. Joe's nice and warm.
Yep.
He'll use whatever he wants. So they don't care. And all the richy riches in Washington are making money off this stuff. And when they find out it doesn't work, it'll be like the MBTA. When they find out it doesn't work, they'll go, oh, well, we thought it was going to fix everything.
Right. Well, Commonwealth Wind is trying to pull out of the contracts they have with the state on providing energy. National Grid, Eversource, and I can't think of the third company now, do not want to renegotiate those contracts. They would just as soon have the contracts fall flat and forget about them. If the governor doesn't push for them to be allowed to renegotiate their contracts, they could technically lose their contracts, which means that Fall River and New Bedford would get hit hardest because Fall River and New Bedford are the two ports they're going to use for Commonwealth Wind.
Yeah, but listen, again, they put wind farms where nobody else wants them.
Right.
So the left cheek and the right cheek of Massachusetts got the wind farm. And look, this is not going to be it's not going to be a panacea again. Talking about this stuff is like urinating into the wind.
Right.
Because you're going to get it right back into your face.
Well, what's interesting is yesterday, the governor announced money through Mass CEC, and Mass CEC is thrilled to continue to play a critical role in the investment of offshore wind ports infrastructure, and these projects will each serve an important role in offshore wind. Now, here's what they've done. $75 million, that's million, to Crowley Wind Services and the City of Salem. $25 million to Prysmian Projects North America for the redevelopment of part of the Brighton Point Marine Commerce Center in Somerset. $15 million to New Bedford Port Authority for the improvement of its North Terminal. $15 million to New Bedford Foss Marine Terminal for the redevelopment of the former Sprague Eversource Power Plant. $4,639,200 to Shoreline Marine Terminal for the build-out of the marine terminals with new bulkhead, docking space, and lift piers, fueling capacity, and other infrastructure, which will support the day-to-day operations of offshore wind crew transfer, again, in New Bedford. And $360,800 to Gladding Hearn Shipbuilding for the shipyard upgrades to enable the local facility in Somerset to fabricate and repair aluminum high-speed crew transfer vessels. And $45 million to Mass CEC's New Bedford Marine Commerce Terminal facility for improvements to accommodate the current and future offshore wind projects. Isn't it amazing how New Bedford got hundreds of millions of dollars?
You know what I don't see in there?
What don't you see?
Newton, Wellesley.
Yeah. Martha's Vineyard.
Martha's Vineyard. Oh, they could surround Martha's Vineyard.
Right. They don't care.
because, it's an island.
That's right.
They could have wind turbines as far as the eye can see, but you're not going to see them killing birds and getting crappy service from wind turbines and then having to maintain them later.
That's
You
right.
know, this again is the government. They're all making money off this deal, and they all stick it where people don't want to go. But while we're on government waste, Herald News, I guess, wrote this off. Foreign New Bedford schools hope funds address MTA's top priorities. Local state union leaders should focus on using the money from the Fair Share Amendment and the Student Opportunities Act on MCAS testing, retirees, higher education, right to strike. They want to strike now. They're not getting enough money.
That's right.
They want to strike. Okay. And funding in 23, 24. Isn't it ironic? Like we talked about the power of the teachers' unions.
Yep.
That they want the right to strike, yet at public safety strikes, they'll go to jail
Right.
because they consider they're an essential service.
Right.
Yet every time there's, like when we had the COVID, remember what all the teachers' unions said? We're essential.
That's right.
Educating our children is essential. But now they want the right to not educate the children if they're not happy with a contract.
And if you remember correctly, there was only one time in Fall River that we had the teachers union strike, and that was with Jerry Fallon
That's right.
as the president.
And I remember that very well because we had an alarm at the Brayton Avenue School and they were picketing. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we had to have a full response, but, you know, we have to check the building.
Right.
Well, you know, we can't just, you know, but to honor the picket line, being a union man, I said, okay, we didn't have anything showing. So I told everybody to stay out, and I went through the picket line. I saw Jerry. I went through the picket line, and I checked the building myself, and we came out. But they did strike. Yeah, that's right. The only strike in the history of Fall River was led by Jerry Fallon.
That's right. And Jerry Fallon, I mean, you have to admit, he was the only one with the cojones to do it. And they even issued a court order to force them to go back to work.
Yep. And there were a couple of firefighter unions that struck throughout the country.
Yep.
And they were basically ordered back in. They activated the National Guard. And listen, I'm a union guy, and you know, the fact is that I believe in unionism, and I believe that that certain jobs do have the right to strike. But the reality is I don't believe that public safety and teachers and things should be able to strike. Now, they can say, okay, we're not going to do any housework. We're only going to do what's necessary. We're going to show up, no extra work, the right to work, you know, blah, blah, blah. And they can do whatever they want. But the reality is the damage to the children, the damage to the safety of the community, unfortunately supersedes. And in reality, in a lot of cases, strikes backfire on unions anyway, because what they do is they hire scabs.
Yep.
They operate at a lower thing, and they break unions. There have been unions that have been broken by strikes. So it's not
Air traffic control union.
Air traffic controller. The worst one was Caterpillar. Mm-hmm. When they struck, they brought in a whole bunch of scabs, and when they were across, I'll never forget that, because when they crossed the picket line, they said to the scabs, you know, why are you people coming in here? They said, oh, these guys are making and this was a long time ago, these guys are making like $15 an hour and they want more. We're getting 13. We don't have jobs. But they never realized that once they broke the union, that they came in and worked for 13.
Right.
As soon as the union was broken, the next year they found people that would work for 11 and then for 10. That's what happens.
Yep.
Because they keep saying, okay, you don't want to work for this, we'll get somebody like you that doesn't have a job at all, and we'll give them the job. And that's the reason that this stuff sometimes is counterproductive.
Well, and you know, nurses see that when they strike, okay? Because they do hire scabs. There's actually professional companies out there which provide professional scabs. And the nurses are arguing for $1 or $2 an hour for a pay raise and more sick time and whatnot. All of a sudden, they go on strike, and these scabs are coming in making $75 to $100 more an hour to be there.
Yeah.
And then the unions wonder why they don't have a lot of a bargaining position, because these scabs will keep going.
No, you're right. I mean, that's what they do. I mean, years ago, in the 1800s, they had a railroad strike. They hired more Pinkertons and paid them more every day than it would have cost to settle the strike.
Right.
Because they didn't want to pay the employees forever. They'll pay them more.
Right. So instead, they changed the law and made it so that Congress can say, no, you have to go to work, and this is your contract now.
Exactly.
Like they did recently.
But that's an inherent problem with that whole thing, the dynamic, because what people don't understand, and it's in that book, Labor's Untold Story.
Your favorite book?
That's one of my favorites. Yeah, absolutely. When they said that we don't care about the employees.
That's right.
See, they don't. People say, "Oh, we care about our nurses. We care." No, they don't. They only care about profit. The private companies only care about profit. That's their bottom line, and they don't care about humans. As a matter of fact, one guy was quoted in that book as saying, "I treat my employees like I treat my machines. I work them until they break down, then I cast them out into the street."
Yeah.
They don't care. So the thing is, these people that try to pretend, oh, well, we want the best interest of to go. No, they're going to get the bottom line. That's why they're all in China and Bangladesh and stuff. They cared about the union employees, and they cared about people making a fair wage. They'd still be, the textile mills would still be in Fall River. They wouldn't have went from Fall River to North Carolina where they could get cheaper labor, then from North Carolina overseas. This is baloney, but that's the way it is.
Yep.
But, it disturbs, what disturbs me about this article? Government throwing money again without any consideration of performance.
And you know what bothered me in this article, too? The more money they throw at the schools, guess what that means?
More jobs, more pay raises.
More money has to be provided by the cities and towns
I understand
to meet the next
spending. But it
spending.
also means it translates into...
And they say in here that it's to this fair share amendment, the millionaire tax?
Yeah.
They want to hire additional support staff, English language teachers, and special needs teachers and emotional support personnel. Again, more people.
Yeah, well, look, as I said, we've said this numerous times, we're extremely pro-education, obviously.
Right.
But I don't care how much money they give an educational system. Well, I do, to a degree. I mean, it can get ridiculous, but I believe it should be tied to performance. If a school performs, they get the money. If schools underperform, how can you give more money for more people when the system is broken? Obviously, there's a situation here where whatever formula they're using to educate our children is not working. We're 25th in the world.
Right.
Laws is right. There is a way to educate children because we see that charter schools are educating children at a fairly good rate. But obviously, the public school system has broken down in the United States, and the reality is that it's because no matter how badly they perform, they just keep getting pay raises and larger and more people. More jobs for their friends and more money for them. Regardless, 335th out of 351, and they think that is okay. And the answer, again, throw money at the problem. And
Right.
That's what government does best. Don't care about the outcome. Give them more money, even if you're paying. That's like the $350 toilet seats that the federal government was paying for.
Yep.
They don't care. And that's the problem. And only you, the people, when you vote, can hold them accountable.
What I thought was interesting was Fall River Educators Association President Keith Michon said the Massachusetts Teachers Association priorities will help Fall River. We have a high needs population, whether that's special needs or multilingual learners. That requires additional funding so that we can meet their needs and provide the services to those student needs. You're getting a lot of money now.
Look, and you know something, he is right to a degree.
Yes.
You're right. We do, if you're going to put that money there, but that's not what they're going to do.
Right.
They're going to hire a bunch of people that don't do anything, and they're going to use the same formula. I agree with him. He's right. We do have people that have...
Oh, there's no question about it.
There's no question about that statement was
Right.
accurate.
Exactly.
However, what are we doing about it? Where's the plan again? Here goes the, Paul's plan for everything. He was an educator. He was on a school committee for 2 years. And now he's the mayor. Where's the plan? Great words, right on the money. What's your plan? How are you going to utilize these people?
Right.
All you can see here is more jobs and more money. And the thing is, and look, and I'm a retiree. If this money was earmarked for education, you got retirees in there. What does that mean? What is a retiree going to do?
Maybe they're going to up their pension.
They're going to give them a higher pension.
Yes.
Which is great with me, but that should not be in an educational bill.
No, it shouldn't.
I'm sorry.
No.
I'm all for raising retirees.
There's no question about that.
There's no question, but that just goes to show how these omnibus bills are created. They just throw everything into the pot to try to get support. And that therein lies the problem.
Well, that's what they did with the millionaire tax. They kept saying it was going to go, and they're using that for this purpose now. They're saying $2 billion for education. But it also goes for transportation. It also goes for wherever the House and Senate want to allocate it.
Yeah,
that's the key. That was in the law.
Well, see, there you go again. You read it.
Yeah, I read the law,
Damn it. I don't know what you're doing. You keep reading stuff. Just listen to them. Well, I'll run it quickly. Do you know that today there's a big ribbon cutting?
Yes. As a matter of fact, it's going on as we speak.
As we speak. I'm so excited. They found another name. The Duval Corridor.
Yes.
We're opening up the Duval Corridor. It's so exciting. And they said the train's going to go right by the park. They're going to jump off the train to go to the park.
Yep.
Like there's no parks anywhere between here and Boston.
Right.
They're going to jump off the train. It's so exciting. These people are delusionary. This is like he's not the Wizard of Oz. We know there's somebody behind that curtain pulling his strings. He's like the Scarecrow, if I only had a brain. But the fact is that they're all delusionary. They're using this again. We're going to cut ribbons. We're all going to be down here and say, oh, here it comes. It's coming down. Now we're getting money. We're getting businesses. And now because it's going by a park, it's going to save Fall River.
How many times have we heard that?
Where are the lollipop, the guild?
Yep.
All we need down there is we are the Lollipop Guild, in the Wizard of Oz.
And I wonder who's going to take the lead on all of this economic development and all of this land sale down there along the Duval Corridor.
Yeah? Oh, well, we know. But look, get your delusionary heads out of your derrieres. We know this is an optic. Another one. Let me see. Duval Corridor. Gateway City, all the urban renewal, gentrification, blah, 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 forever. They have come up with, and names do not create a community that's successful. This community needs education, needs lower crime, needs a better a higher performing educational system, and it needs job training programs, and it needs to get people to work where they have paychecks. When we had a community that actually functioned. These people in their ribbon cutting, somebody should grab that ribbon and strangle them with it. I'm telling you, because this is crap, okay? The reality is, again, they're all going to line up with, it's either a shovel, they always got either a...
There are shovels today.
Shovels and ribbons and big scissors.
Yep.
And
there are shovels today.
That's what they do.
Yep, it's a groundbreaking.
That's what they do. And how many of these programs do we have? Everything's going to save the city.
Right.
And now we got another name. We're going to call it the Duval Corridor. And what's going to happen? The train is going to go by the park. Isn't it wonderful? They're going to look out the window and say, I'm going to ride the train to Fall River just to go by the park so I can look at it. Because I never saw a park before. I've never seen one. It's amazing what a trip you can have. And in 4 or 5 years, let's see how many derelicts are living in that park. But, this is the reality. But while we're on ridiculousness, the massive Fall River housing complex proposal.
The Weaver Street project.
Let's get to that little boondoggle.
Oh, okay. Now, if you remember this, currently the building is a small Trust Company, okay? TRUSS. And what gets interesting is they wanted to build an 11-story building with 300 units initially. Then it went to 368. And the Fall River Zoning Board of Appeals rejected their application. Nobody thought it was going to get rejected. Everybody thought it was going to go through. It had Attorney Killoran. Developers Abbott and Farnham from Rye, New Hampshire, not local, first applied for a variance seeking waivers for a $50 million proposal for side, rear, and front yard setbacks, the allowed building heights from 6 floors to 14, as well as a waiver for the required number of parking spaces. Remember we talked about this way back.
At length.
At length. The property's at 100 Weaver Street, and it's a little more than 2 acres in a commercial mill district. After several delays at the request of the developers, the zoning board heard a presentation on December 15th from their attorney, Thomas Killoran. The developers tweaked the project since the first application, paring the apartment building from 14 floors to 11 floors and decreasing the number of units by 15% from 346 to 296. The zoning board approved a now lapsed variance for another smaller housing project to the property's current owner, Domingos Medeiros, owner of the Hard Pine Trust Company, which is currently located on the property. The initial proposal was similar. Opponents had their say, and this is the first time that I know of that the Zoning Board of Appeals actually listened to the opposition. Neighbors and other city stakeholders finally had their opportunity to officially weigh in with their opposition to the project. Alex Silva, a member of the Preservation Society, appeared again representing the organization as he had in 4 different zoning board meetings with the issue of the Weaver Street proposed project was tabled. Silva reiterated the Preservation Society opinion that the project would be detrimental to the neighborhood and the waterfront. The circa 1873 Border City Mill Building number 2 that stands close by a 5-story tall, rather than complementing the monument of the Fall River craftsmanship, the new development would hide it and the waterfront from the view of the public. Imagine that. Imagine that. So, here was the end runaround once they got denied. And I've got to give David Assad a lot of credit for running with this, because this was his last meeting. He said, "I've done enough, I'm resigning." I'm waiting to see who the new replacement is, because it's going to be interesting to see.
It'll be a yes vote.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see who's on the take. But Mark Levin went to level the opposition to the proposed housing project located across the street. Well, guess what? It got shot down. The fact that they may not have the profits they want for possible resale or rents is not a hardship, said Levin. Now they do something that would substantially harm the public and the neighborhoods. Yes, it's not the project. The project did not meet for the variance, which, by the way, the Zoning Board of Appeals never follows this law, okay? There were no hardships as the property, like the shape of the property, the topography, or legally warranted that they be granted a variance. So when Tom Killoran lost it, he turned around and he gave the finger to the city.
Can you be disbarred for that? Isn't it conduct unbecoming?
I would think so.
An attorney?
I would think so.
Give him the finger?
Yep.
Because Killoran's been in for a long time.
That's right.
He probably got upset. He probably thought they were going to rubber stamp it.
That's right.
And let's see what happens down the road, because we know what's going to happen, because they might hire in a high-powered consultant who can really help you, because, you know, maybe we talked on the last show, maybe he might get $100,000 for this consultation.
That's right.
Not $45,000.
Right.
But, you know, good for them. We don't need a 14-story
right.
eyesore stuck in the middle. Guess what, buddy? I know that developer was very upset.
Yes.
Go build it in Rye, New Hampshire.
That's
How
right.
many 14-story buildings with no parking and no clearance do you have in Rye, New Hampshire? I'd like to know that. Somebody should have researched that and seen how many 14-story buildings they have in Rye, New Hampshire. These people come down here to rape and pillage and carpetbag in Fall River. It's about time they did something right. And kudos to the attorney.
Yep.
It's his last meeting, and I know he was on the Charter Commission.
Yes, he was, which we can't give him credit for.
We can't give him any credit for that one, but I'll give him credit for this one.
Yep.
But it's his parting shot. I guess he figured I better resign because I won't have a job after this.
Exactly.
After this vote. But the reality is, they're coming in here, and we know it. They're coming in here to make money, and that was a very, very great exit. That's not a hardship. When you come in here and you think you're going to make money, and all of a sudden you realize you're not going to make as much money as you thought. That's why they don't want affordable housing units.
That's right. That's right.
They're gonna. That is not a hardship. That's just
At one
business.
time, they tried to sell it by making it veteran housing only. At one time, that's how they tried to sell it, and it didn't make it that way either. So it tells you a lot. Well, in the last few minutes, let's talk about a new school building.
Ugh.
The Diman Project.
Oh, God.
It's going to start breaking ground next year. It's to begin in the spring. And the dates will be easy to predict once Suffolk formally signs on the contract. Now, here's the thing. They've entered into discussions with Suffolk because Suffolk built Durfee, but they haven't signed a contract with them yet. But they're already saying that Suffolk's got the job, which we knew.
Yeah.
Well, we knew. That there's no, okay? Now, according to the principal, Andrew Ribello, this is a monumental point in the history of Diman. We've been talking about this for years and years. I'm not saying Diman doesn't need a new building, granted, okay? But it was done at the wrong time, number one. They could have done this before the Durfee project, but no, they do it afterwards. Now, the school's already trying to figure out how to accommodate spring sports practices and games because they're off-site, because they're going to build the new school on the athletic fields. And where the building now sits, the school building now sits, that's going to become the athletic fields. So scheduling is going to become a challenge. The MSBA has agreed to pay 51% of the total. Fall River and Diman's three other feeder communities, Somerset, Swansea, and Westport, all signed off on paying for the proportional share of the project. So far, none of them have opted to allow a debt exclusion or debt override to cover their share of the project's costs, which would allow a town or city to raise property taxes specifically to pay for the new building in November, which is what Fall River did for Durfee. In November, Westport voters rejected in a ballot question for a debt exclusion.
Well, while we're on a debt exclusion, we'll be coming up to budget time very shortly, and there is a paper with a preliminary estimate of the cost of the Durfee debt override, and ironically enough, in last year's budget, it was like $1 million less that supposedly was appropriated. So I think that this budget cycle, somebody's going to ask some questions about, if we appropriate $1 million under again, where's that $2 million going?
Right.
Because we had a projected payment plan. What the hell is this? Oh, it's a telemarketer. Okay. But we're going to have to ask where that money's going.
Yeah.
Because we supposedly had a plan to pay this debt, and we had all this opera money. We should be paying nothing, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, well, it's always interesting to see when budget time comes around, because if you remember, Joe Camara said, we built all these other schools without a debt exclusion, we're not going to have it. So now $6 million a year plus is going to have to come out of the city budget somewhere to pay for this school, because Joe Camara said we don't need a debt exclusion. Not that a debt exclusion would have gotten approved, because I firmly believe the people of Fall River have learned from their previous mistake, and they won't repeat it.
And there will be a complaint filed with the state if we do not have what we're paying for Durfee
on our tax bill
clearly earmarked.
Yep, definitely.
Because they have a fiduciary obligation to tell us what they're taking.
Yep. Well, I want to thank you all for watching today, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Friday for the last show of the year. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.